Good morning to all Toastmasters, special guests, and everyone out in TV land. I call to order right now, TV Toastmasters Advanced Club 9523. Happy New Year! Give yourselves a hand for being here. Yes. We have a special and exciting program for you today. We have a man who is on the verge of getting his DTM who's going to be giving a presentation. We have another young lady who is an ATM Silver who's giving an advanced presentation as well. It will be very exciting to hear them speak. We have amongst us today a number of guests. We have Miss Verna Gibson, an ATM Silver, who will be presenting today. Give her a hand. In our audience with us is a very distinguished man. In fact, he's a DTM, and he's also voted Mr. Toastmaster of the entire District 40, the man in orange, Joe Schwerling. We have with us from the President's Distinguished Club of CIC Speaks, Laura Lee Gayfield. She's a competent Toastmaster herself. Lastly, we have an area governor, a man among men, a man's man, according to his wife, Mr. Ron Althouse. Without wasting any of your time, without any further ado, I give to you the last year's reigning outstanding Toastmaster of the Year, voted in high school most likely to toast something, Miss Carol Kormelink.
Thank you, Gary. And good morning, viewing audience. I'm glad to see everyone here, and if you're glad to be here, say, hooray!
Hooray!
Great, thank you very much. As the Toastmaster of the morning, it's my job to explain the components of the meeting. Gary already explained that we're having two speakers today. They also have evaluators, and I will be introducing our general evaluator later, who happens to be our president, Gary Reese. And he will evaluate the evaluators, ask for reports from the rest of his team, and then he will evaluate the meeting in general. We have a timer that records the length of each person's speech and provides a visual sign to the speaker that the allotted time is about to expire. And we have a treat today because after you go over the 30-second leeway, she will hold all three cards together at once, so you know you're beyond your free time there, your extra 30 seconds. So that will help you to know that it's time to, we don't have this hook that drags you off, but you know that it's time to wrap it up. And those boring business meetings wouldn't be so boring if people knew how to speak clearly and concisely in a precise moment of time. So for our impromptu session this morning, we have a grammarian, all-counter, who will present a new or little-known word for us to use. She then records the number of times that each person uses this word during the meeting, and this serves to increase everyone's vocabulary. As the all-counter, she will count the number of times that each person uses unnecessary filler words like ahs, ums, instead of a stately pause. We want you to think with your mouth closed. And then she will give us a report at the end of the meeting. And we find that when you keep score, your score gets better. So Rita has been employed by McGill Smith Punchin for 29 years. She's a competent communicator, has a way with words. Let us welcome our grammarian all-counter, Rita Reese, with the word of the day.
Hello, fellow Toastmasters. Beautiful Saturday day, not like winter at all. I like to use a word that everybody probably knows but probably doesn't use a lot. And this word probably would be better to use than what people use for the same circumstances. My word for the day is budinsky. Budinsky is a person butting in, a troublesome meddler. I hope that as Toastmasters that none of us are budinskys. And there's two different ways to spell budinsky. So my challenge is everybody try to fit this into your speech.
Yeah, that fights with the camera when you put it there. Thank you, Rita. You probably made that word for me because I have been called a budinsky. I've even been called a yenta, which is not an insult because I don't mind helping people. So thank you for giving us that word. Our next segment is the Topic Master, where we have table topics, and that helps the members increase their extemporaneous speaking skills by asking members to speak for 2 minutes about a surprise topic. Table topics are actually mini speeches. They should have an opening, a body, and a conclusion, and they test how well we can listen and think quickly on our feet. Extemporaneous speaking skills are extremely valuable in the business world. So see if you can use Budinsky to answer your question truthfully, let your imagination run wild, or that reminds me, and talk about something else. Try to think and speak for a minimum of 1 minute when you will see the green card, 1.5 minutes the yellow, 2 minutes the red, and when she holds up all 3 cards, you'll know that your 1.5 minute leeway is over. And then it's time to sit down. Our topic master, Rick Davis, is the founder of this club, and he also is the founder of the NIOSH club where he works as a scientist. Now, Rick is much too modest to tell you that he's a PhD, but I'm not. And I want you to know that he's had about 50 research papers published, and he knows lots about hearing and ears. And for those of you who watch the Antiques Roadshow on PBS, this is going to be the Antiques Sideshow with Rick Davis. Let us welcome distinguished Toastmaster Rick Davis.
Thank you, Carol. Well, has everybody seen the Antiques Roadshow? They know the general idea. The expert tells them what great piece of junk that they have and how it's worth thousands of dollars. So your role today is you are the expert. You're going to come up here and tell me what great piece of junk I found, and you're going to tell me how much it's worth. So that's the goal here. So I've been rooting around in my attic and whatnot, and I have all sorts of great stuff. And although Steve is speaking today, I think he would be an ideal person to show how this all works. So Steve, I bought this. Would you come up here, please? You're the expert on American memorabilia. I bought this fork on eBay, and this is Elvis's fork, and I spent a lot of money for this. So I want to make sure that this really is Elvis's fork. Can you tell me that?
Sure, I can give you a perspective on this. This is a fork that was created for Elvis, specifically as a part of the Evelyn Wood speed eating course. And there should be a mate to this, because using these to eat in what we also refer to as a feeding frenzy can be done with both hands. So because you don't have a complete set here, that's going to reduce the value of it some. Now, this is made in outer Botswana. And I believe that the core, if you take the plating off of this, is radioactive. So it adds a little bit of zing to whatever is being eaten. Also removes wrinkles. But I don't know where you would have gotten this. I would say that even though it's missing a mate, since it is an Elvis Presley custom-made speed-eating fork, you probably have something here that is worth about $185. If you could find the mate for it, it would probably be worth about $300. Now that is to Elvis Presley aficionado. If it was to the average family that might be likely to use this as a trowel in the flower bed, you're going to be hard-pressed to compete with the local hardware store. So I'd say about $185.
Oh, I spent a lot more than that on eBay. Well, we were rooting through some of Grandma's things. You know, Grandma passed away, and we're rooting through some of her things. And I don't know what these are. And Joe Schwerling, you're the expert on ceramics. And can you tell me what the heck these are? I haven't got the slightest idea. But they're probably worth a lot of money, I hope.
Well, of course they're the right color. They're orange. Everything orange is perfect. These are actually portion control devices for dieting. the smaller the plate or bowl size you use, the less likely you are to eat. So you just use these small containers, and when you finish them, you finish one, then you turn it upside down, you see that nice bright color that makes for a fun day. It raises your spirits. You forget about your hunger pangs from having digested such a small amount. Now, sometimes you may be inclined to take these with you. They're so convenient because you can keep them in your pocket. When you go to restaurants, you can ask them to serve your food in these containers. Only problem with that is some Budinskis will occasionally question why you're bringing in your own container to eat from. Just as Steve mentioned, there are some disadvantages. This orange is glowing because of its radioactive content as well. But as long as you use it with the Elvis Presley utensils, they counteract each other and make them quite safe. At the same time, it also helps you lose more weight. As far as what the value of these would be, it says Remington on here, and of course Remington also makes the ammunition and firearms. You have some additional expense whenever you're storing or transporting these because of the potential explosive nature. So you have to be willing to pay off some local constabulary to not raid and confiscate your materials. And at worst, the occupational safety and health may interfere. So
You need to give me a...
better just give them away as Christmas presents.
No, I don't think so. They're grandmas, you know? They're grandmas. I can't give them away. Well, I found this book, and this book's probably worth a lot of money because it's from like the 20s. So, Ray, would you come up here?
Sure.
Tell me about this book. This is probably, you know, Ron, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. The Ancient Highway by James Oliver Curwood. Rick, I want to set your mind at ease about one thing. This book is not radioactive. You probably have a couple of more days to live having these first two radioactive items with you, but it will give you time to read this book, The Ancient Highway. This is the story written by a Roman nobleman about the Appian Way, the highway from Rome to the rest of Italy. And it actually is an original document. Nobody knows this, but it's quite a secret that they had fantastic publishing capability back in those days. And so this particular Roman nobleman wrote this book. And its relevance to you today has to do with the fact that it's very generic in nature. It's not actually just about the road to Rome. It's about any road you would want to take in life. Any road that you would want to take in life. In fact, it actually is the foundation of the way in which people have decided to pursue their goals and travel through life. I know that sounds a little serious, but you know, with your life expectancy of less than a week now, you should go for it, Rick. Thank you.
But how much is it worth? That's what I want.
It's nearly priceless.
Priceless?
Yes.
Wow.
I don't know how you came about this, but you know, I would immediately hire some security agents to protect you on the way home tonight.
I think the fact that it's signed on the front in magic marker probably
That's true.
adds
That's
to the value.
It does. It does.
Well, I don't know what to do next. Darren, would you come up here and tell me about this? My uncle is a collector of memorabilia. Can you tell me what this is? I don't know what this is.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Tabletopics Master. fellow Toastmasters. This is a fantastic looking medal. It's the United States Public Health Service Medal. And as you can see, it's a very spiffy medal. And this medal was actually given out during World War II for nurses and doctors who actually served during the war. And it's a very bronze-looking medal, very nice. And as you can see, it also has several complimentary medals. So I would say this is probably worth, I don't know, maybe $30, $40, because this particular medal was actually worn by a very famous doctor who went on to cure a very rare form of cancer. So I would say this medal is probably worth $30, $40, and it's very attractive also. You can see it has a nice bronze color. So and you also have a little baby medal you can give to your kids. So. See, one medal for the parent, one medal for the kids. So I'd say this is quite attractive. And also a very nice carrying case, blue carrying case, and little lapel pins. So this looks like something that I think most people would find very attractive. So I'd say $30 to $40.
Great.
So.
All right. Gary, would you come up here and tell me what this is?
Thank you, thank you. It just happens that I happen to be an expert in this particular field. What we have here, upon casual observation, appears to be a medal with a ribbon, but not true. This is actually an ancient Mayan marital aid. This was worn by women to denote that they were ready to become a wife. This was to let them know that they're ready to become married. You might notice the beautiful hue and the glow on this. That's because it's been sitting next to other items that are radiological. I would have you know that this particular amulet is really what it's known as, is beyond price. In fact, there's no amount of money that could possibly buy this. In other words, I'm telling you it's basically worthless. I would submit to you that you might want to contact the Mayan government and see if they would like to purchase this back. You might get a small fortune in that regard because it would be meaningful to them. Now, keep this in mind. There is no Mayan government. They have been long extinct for thousands of years. So therefore, you might want to contact the Mexican government, the people that actually conquered the Mayans along with the Spanish. They might be willing to purchase it, Rick.
Okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. Interesting how an ancient Mayan culture has the Statue of Liberty on the on their amulets.
They're ahead of their time.
Way ahead of their time. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Rick, for that provocative and lively session. That was good. I think I like that better than Dan Slather. The next part of our program is the presentation session. This is where speakers present prepared speeches from either the basic Competent Communicator Manual or one of the 15 advanced manuals. These manuals provide structure and guidance to improve our skills such as organization, vocabulary, vocal variety, and body language. Our first speaker will be presenting from the basic manual using vocal variety. And why don't I ask Steve's evaluator, Darren Henderson, to come up and read the objectives of Steve's speech and then introduce Steve. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Steve is our first speaker today. Steve works for the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, better known as NIOSH. And Steve's also a member of the NIOSH Club. Steve is an ATM Gold, and he has 2 projects left to complete in order to reach the top of the advanced leadership track, and he will then be a distinguished Toastmaster. The topic of Steve's speech, or the goal, is to improve or increase vocal variety. And his objectives are to explore the use of voice volume, pitch, rate, and quality as assets to your speaking, and to achieve a pleasing, natural voice quality when speaking. So at this point, let's give a hearty welcome to Steve Ahrenholz and his speech, Looking Out from Santa's Choir.
Thank you, Darren. Actually, it's looking out from Santa's chair. Does anyone hear that? What do you think about Santa Claus? Do you believe in Santa Claus? If you say yes, why? If you say no, are you sure? Have you ever thought about what it is like looking out from Santa's chair? As children, we may have been in awe of the rotund, jovial, white and red fur-clad elf that brought joy every Christmas Eve. December 25th used to take forever to come, and we hoped against hope that we would get our wishes fulfilled. Santa Claus, his elves, the anticipation of Christmas morning, and the entire Christmas season is so much more than anything that can come from a store. Anything that can be wrapped in bright paper with ribbons. Indeed, more than anything that can be purchased, or, for that matter, any person, fictitious or real. I've found, as the years have passed, that Christmas is still a time of anticipation, of reflection, and that it becomes more meaningful to me with every passing year. Christmas is a time of hope, a promise that was fulfilled, and a promise that is yet to come. 5 years ago, I was asked to serve as Santa Claus as a part of a local holiday event. Now, I can honestly tell you, being Santa Claus is not something I ever really thought about doing. It's not something I aspired to. All dressed up in full costume, complete with the full beard, walking around in public, and sitting on the big Santa chair, up on a platform. No, not something that I ever envisioned myself doing. And I'll tell you, I had no intention of filling out that suit. Well, the first year that I agreed to be Santa, there was a mix-up with my costume about 45 minutes before I was to go out and meet with the children. There was no stuffing to go with the costume. I would have looked like a coat rack wearing a big red and white fur bag. The need to fill out the costume prompted resourcefulness. Stuffing sofa cushions into a sweatshirt rounded out the corners and provided a rather respectable 50-inch waistline. The suit was filled out satisfactorily, and Santa was ready to go and make an appearance. I was set, dressed in what seemed like enough insulation to allow me to wander around the North Pole for weeks, let alone sit around indoors. I ventured out to meet the public. I would talk with the children coming to see Santa before the holiday show. Truthfully, I'd never had that much attention as I experienced when I stepped out through that doorway and into the hall to walk out to take a seat in Santa's big chair. It was amazing to see the reaction and excitement in the faces of children and adults when they saw Santa walking out to take a seat on his chair. I'd been informed that I had to stay in character the entire time I was outside of my dressing room. The reception that actually it was Santa, received was heartwarming. Never mind that my glasses were already starting to fog as I exhaled through the mustache that I had on my face. Looking out from Santa's chair brought to my attention the fact that Santa Claus is more than any one individual, more than presents, more than a holiday in December. The excitement of children coming to see Santa when he hoping that he would bring them what they had asked for. Children asking Santa if he liked the chocolate chip cookies that they left out for him last Christmas. Asking if he'd be able to find his way to their new house. Getting to see how big their eyes got when some little tyke here realized that this is Santa. Or the hugs from the Down syndrome child who what that child needed was nothing that could be purchased from any store, but had caring parents that made sure this individual had what they needed and also the opportunity to visit with Santa. The look of amazement and confusion on the faces of children that were experiencing Christmas in the United States for the first time in their lives. Talking to little ones who weren't quite sure what they thought about this big, red, bearded character that everyone wanted to talk to. And you know, I realized that I would be showing up on Christmas trees, mantles, and in photo albums for decades after these children were no longer interested in sitting on Santa's knee or telling him what they wanted for Christmas. I have to tell you, I was also impressed when adults would come up and talk with me. They'd tell me what they'd like. They'd want their picture taken with me. I made it a practice to get down from the platform on which Santa's chair sat on, and would stand next to them for their picture. One year there was an older woman using a walker, and she told me that I was really a good Santa. And that was one of the best compliments I received that year. Well, I'm always impressed when someone wants to come and talk to Santa. They give Santa a big hug. They ask for something for someone else. I've come to see that Santa is much more than a fictitious character. Santa embodies a promise, a hope, warmth, patience, the things that are good and just and worthwhile. Santa doesn't need to impress people. Santa embodies the best in each of us. So I believe in Santa. And if you said you don't, well, maybe you do, but you just don't know it. Madam Toastmaster?
Our second speaker is a good friend of mine, and you will note by her speech that she enjoys life. Her sense of humor and her inquisitive mind make her a person who is fun to be with. We had a great time last week at the Festival of Lights at the Cincinnati Zoo, and would her evaluator, Gordon Kelly, please read the objectives of Verna's speech and introduce her. Gordon.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good morning to our television audience, our guests, and members here in the studio today. I will evaluate Verna Gibson today. She will be speaking from Humorously Speaking Advanced Manual Project 4. Verna is an advanced Toastmaster, bronze competent leader, having been a Toastmaster for 5 years. She speaks from firsthand experience about ups and downs of skydiving, one of her many adventures in living life to the fullest. As you will learn from her speech, her sense of humor combined with her sense of adventure make her a fun person to be with and enjoy life. Please help me in welcoming Verna Gibson.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guest, I hope that that introduction was about me. I was standing over there thinking, who is he talking about? Okay, well, anyway, it seems that I've always been fascinated by the idea of flying. So some years ago, after seeing a story on TV about skydiving, I decided that was something that I wanted to do. Even after hearing, why jump out of a perfectly good airplane from Badinsky's, better known as my friends and relatives, I was determined. I know that it's not the fall, but the sudden stop that gets you. You know, I had heard about a student who was killed in an air crash after going skydiving to conquer her fear of heights. Her mom said, She was our little princess, but now she's gone and we have to say goodbye. But on the plus side, she's no longer afraid of heights. Well, not long after this, I arrived at the Richmond, Indiana airport and was greeted with the following sign. If at first you don't succeed, so much for skydiving. Now, isn't that a nice thought right before you jump? Well, we had our training, and after about 30 minutes, one of the fellows held up his hand. If our chute doesn't open, and the reserve chute doesn't open, how long do we have before we hit the ground? Our jump master looked at him and with perfect deadpan answered, the rest of your life. I was hooked up with an altimeter and told to pull the chute myself at 6,000 feet if George, my tandem jump instructor, happened to black out. Oh, of course, I was assured this has never happened. But show me a guy who's frantically yanking his ripcord, and I'll show you a guy who knows the gravity of the situation. Then my mind flashed back to that cute little sign, if at first you don't succeed. Well, soon I was in a small plane flying at 9,000 feet. The door was open. The wind rushed by. It was very cold, and it was so noisy that George had to shout to be heard. Ready to jump? You bet. Within seconds, the chute opened, and we floated safely down to earth. Well, after this rip-roaring success, I had an opportunity to travel to Costa Rica with some friends and take a treetop canopy tour. On this adventure in the rainforest, I'd be crossing thousands of meters of cable strung between trees and platforms, helped along by harnesses. So after trekking up the mountain to the first platform, I listened carefully to the instructions. When the guide let go loose of me, I would zip off down the cable, and when I got to a certain point, like, see that tree limb sticking out there, you get to that point, all tree limbs might look the same, but you better know which one it is. I was to tighten my grip on the cable enough to slow myself down and then make it to the next platform without slamming into the tree. Well, this did seem like a good idea. But soon the inevitable happened. I gripped the cable too soon and slid to a stop about 10 feet short of the platform. Sliding backwards and finding myself suspended high in the air, I contemplated my predicament. Like the fly who fell into the marmalade jar, I said, just how did I get into this predicament? You see, I'm not afraid of heights. I'm only afraid of falling from heights. But actually, I know it's not the fall, but the sudden stop, and that worries me. Now, since I couldn't turn around and pull myself up this cable backwards, I had to wait for the guide to come to my rescue and push me up to the platform. You see, gravity is not just a good idea, it's the law. And I, being a Trivial Pursuit addict, remembered that it takes 2.5 minutes to free fall from the top of Mount Everest to the bottom. How high am I here? Okay. Now, this also reminds me of another story. Two people are in a small airplane, small 2-engine airplane. The pilot comes on and says one of the engines has gone out. So the one fellow asks, how far do you think we can go on one engine? Well, the second guy says, all the way to the side of the crash. And actually, that's pretty convenient because that's where we're headed anyway. We'll probably beat the paramedics by 20 minutes. Okay, back to the jungle. So later I asked the guides if this sort of thing happened very often. Getting stuck on the cable, I mean. And they said, no, only about once a day. And of course, I happened to be it for that day. So I really don't know why I so often choose adventures which involve high places. I guess I'm like the fellow who fell from a 40-story building. As he passed the 30th floor, he said to himself, I'm doing fine so far. As he passed the 20th floor, still doing fine. Mr. Toastmaster.
We now come to the listening, responding, and reporting session headed by our general evaluator, our president, Gary Reese. I will now give control of the lectern to Gary to introduce his team of evaluators and other team members.
There are two wonderful facets to Toastmasters that are unlike any other organization that I know of. One is we encourage you, we urge you, we exhort you to get in front of a crowd, step out of your comfort zone, and do something that most people find to be uncomfortable, public speaking. The second thing we do that I absolutely love about this organization is we give instantaneous feedback. We don't call it criticism. We don't even call it constructive criticism. Those two words should never be placed together. They are diametrically opposed to each other. But what we do is we give suggestions. We give affirmation. We explain to you what it is that we liked about what you did, what it is that we think could use some work or polish, and what it is that we absolutely loved about your presentation. We call this the sandwich evaluation. 2 pieces of beautiful bread with some meat in between. Here to give us an evaluation of our first speaker is Mr. Darren Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and especially Steve. Steve, I thought this was a very good topic for you because the first time I heard you speak, the one thing that really stood out to me was your voice. You have a very naturally pleasing and smooth voice, which obviously that's not something you can learn, that's something you're born with. But I think that's a very good skill. First thing I'd like to talk about was your articulation. I think that was the thing that probably stood out the most from a vocal variety standpoint. You have excellent articulation, and it really helps to convey your message. Also, your voice volume was very easy to hear. The pitch was excellent. Your voice rate was good, and I think you tend to use your rate to convey your emotions. You may speed up during things you want to convey, or you may slow down if you want to really make a point. And that is one facet of vocal variety. I also thought that even though it wasn't part of the speech, that your use of words was excellent. You talked about how kids feel about Santa. Then you talked about anticipation, hope, promise fulfilled, promise yet to come. And those words just really stood out, partially because of your vocal variety, but also because they were just a very good description of how kids feel about Santa. Also, I thought this was a very good topic, very timely. I just took my son to see Santa last week. He's 4 months old, and it was an interesting experience, I'll put it that way. I learned don't go see Santa at 7 p.m. at night, because Santa gets tired. And the other thing I thought was very interesting about the speech was that if we look around the room here, you probably would be the last person we'd say would be a Santa Claus, because you're a tall, slender guy. So that means there's plenty of hope for me, because I've got a little bit more padding than you have. But I think that was just interesting, the fact that you were a Santa Claus, and that means that pretty much any of the rest of us can be Santa if you can be Santa. And also I thought it was humorous when you talked about the fact that, you know, you were slender and you came and found that you didn't have any padding in the suit, so you probably looked like the bad Santa from the movie if you didn't have any padding. But I thought it was an excellent speech. A couple things that maybe things that work on in the future are maybe the tone and vitality. I think you could have used the tone or the vitality to kind of convey the message of, when you talked about more serious topics like the Down syndrome's children, maybe to speak a little bit softer, maybe have a little bit different tone. And also a very small item was the hat you had a bell in it. It was a little bit distracting as you spoke. Just kind of a small item, particularly with the microphone here, to think about in the future. But overall, I thought it was an excellent speech, very timely. And I thought, like I say, you had very good vocal variety, but also I picked up a couple other things as far as use of words and just overall just how you present yourself that really made it a very entertaining speech. So, thank you.
Good job, Darren. As you can see, there were points to grow upon as well as affirmation on things that were done well. Now, for our second evaluation of speaker number 2, I give to you an officer of this club, our vice president of, I believe, members education, Mr. Gordon Kelly.
Thank you, Gary. Verna's speech today was taken from the Advanced Communication and Leadership Program, Humorously Speaking. And the actual title for this was Guide for Keeping Them Laughing. And I think she really did a job at that. So I thought it was a great job there. I'll just go over the points that she was trying to accomplish, I think. And one was breaking the ice. She did a very good job at coming right up front with a joke and breaking the ice. She was able to emphasize her points very well. The body of the speech, I felt, was also tied together very well. That was kind of a hard thing to do, I believe, there, but you did a good job. There were parts that were tedious and complex, especially the Costa Rica and the cable story. And I was a little bit, probably not totally focused on that, but I thought that was a little tedious and complicated. The transition itself, I thought, was very smooth. I thought that you did a good job there. And as far as closing the story, I thought that was great. I think the overall point was skydiving can be dangerous, but it's very fun. Sounds like it was a lot of fun anyway. I've never done it. And the jokes were very amusing. I thought they were very good. And I thought you were very comfortable and confident in what you did. So overall, I thought it was a very, very well given speech.
Evaluation of everything that's happened to the lectern to this point. Let me start off by saying the following. The room is attired appropriately with the Toastmasters banner. We have a lectern, a gavel. The room is done appropriately. The meeting started precisely on time because the president knew what he was doing. Carol is Toastmaster. Great intros. Several times you had various tidbits about each speaker that you were introducing that gave us just a little flavor of what was yet to come or something that we didn't know about them previously. That is the product of research, talking to people before the meeting starts, knowing something about them that you can share with others. Good job. You also had nice segues and intros back and forth from one segment to the other. That's the mark of a champion and a class person at the role of Toastmaster. Rita, as your word of the day, I have 2 other definitions that you did not cover. First off, it's supposed to be the word of the day, not the words of the day. I think it's inappropriate for you to select butt in sky. It's just not right, doggone it. I've heard of the nose up in the sky, but not the butt in the sky. Secondly, I also heard that a buttinsky is the description of a certain ethnic individual's rear end. I don't know. Rick Davis, Tabletopics. This was an innovative and unique idea. In fact, I would go so far as to say it was stellar and landmark. I really enjoyed this quite a bit because it challenged us to be completely impromptu. We had no idea what was going on. No way to try and form an opening, a body, and a conclusion to each one of those was difficult. But it was a great exercise and it stretched our imaginations. Good job. I would like to talk about Gordon and Darren. You guys were called up, and this actually goes back to our Toastmaster. We had a problem in previous shows where there was a transition problem in having the person's evaluator read off what the criteria was. In a normal meeting, the Toastmaster would ask for the evaluator to rise and just give it out. But in this particular setting, we have to actually come up here so that you can hear us at the lectern. Normally, in a normal meeting, I would have been critical of the Toastmaster by saying, this is your job to actually introduce them. Let the evaluator read the criteria, but your job is to introduce them. But in this particular setting, this worked perfectly. This was a solution to the problem that we had. So I say that as a Toastmaster, sometimes we have to be innovative, and that's exactly what you did today, Carol. Good job on that. Steve Ahrenholz, I loved everything about your speech except for your tie. I don't know. The Santa Claus tie just got me, but it was appropriate for today's speech. You did a good job. It really was. It really was a good speech. And I'm nitpicking and just having fun with you on the tie.
You gotta wear it when you have the chance.
That's right. Once a year. Verna Gibson, very funny. You almost did a stand-up comedy act up here. From one pun to the next, from one misuse of words or a funny way of looking at things and twisting them, I enjoyed it. I saw some of the punchlines coming, but they were still enjoyable. Good job, and I encourage you to maybe incorporate that into a humorous speech contest next year. You might think about that. My two evaluators, I thought you gave some very good tips. I would suggest to Gordon, you only used 1 minute and 16. You need to use 2 minutes or more, and you got a 30-second leeway, so you still were below that leeway. Try to figure out some more meat and beef to give to your speaker that you're evaluating. You did actually give them some good tips. I just think there's some more that you probably could have thrown up there at them. Darren, excellent job also. I think you gave your speaker many things to ponder and think about. I was right there with you when you were talking about the ability on vocal variety. I think the way I would have worded it was, you can't go over the top, Steve. Use enthusiasm, use vim and vigor to really, yes! You have the ability to go over the top on sincerity. Now go over the top on enthusiasm. That would have been my other suggestion to you. And I think that Darren was basically saying that. I'm just using different words. I think all in all, this was an excellent meeting. I think we demonstrated that TV Toastmasters is alive and healthy. We had a great time up here. And I now turn control of the meeting back over to our Toastmaster, Ms. Carol Kormelink.
Thank you, Gary. Gary does a very thorough job as a general evaluator. I like this meeting, and if you're glad that you were here, say, "Ole!" Ole! Great. One of the most important aspects of a meeting is listening. No butt-inskies. When you're up here at the lectern, you have everyone's rapt attention for the time of your speech. No butt-inskies. We listen. And they even clap. They give you this wave of energy to encourage you to come to the lectern, and they listen to what you have to say, and then they clap when you leave. So it's a very encouraging experience, and I welcome the viewing audience to come visit us on Saturday morning, the third Saturday of the month at TV Toastmasters at the ACT studio. And I also forgot to mention that in the Tabletopics, when he was talking about the ancient highway, I thought he might have been talking about I-75. Anyway, that's thanks to Steve. Steve made that comment. And I will now return control to our president to close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking at my notes, I've noticed that I'm remiss in one other comment as the general evaluator. I meant to say, in addition to teasing Rita about the word of the day, that she has chosen once again another good word. Several meetings ago, she chose the word apt. You very rarely see a word of the day that's only 3 letters long, but it was a very good word of the day. Today she had Budinsky. How many people thought that was actually a word? It is. It's in the dictionary. And Rita found it and was able to use it. I believe there's another word that replies to Budinsky. It's kibitz, a person who butts in a chess game or is part of it just sticks their nose into somewhere that's a competition that they don't belong. Budinsky was an excellent word. Okay, with that said, I would like to call 2 guests up to the lectern, but make it 3. I'm going to call 3 people up to the lectern today to tell us what they thought of this particular meeting and their experience here at TV Toastmasters. Mr. Joe Schwerling, would you please go up here and give us some impressions on your meeting, your thoughts on the meeting today, to share with the audience out there in TV land. You are a distinguished DTM. You're a member of like 5 or 6 clubs, and you yourself have seen club after club over the years. Tell us what you thought of this meeting, please.
I'll just say that every Toastmasters meeting is like a family reunion. And the more people you have, the more fun you have, the more you learn about each other. So I encourage everyone, particularly during the holiday season, enjoy your families, enjoy your family reunions, and extend your family reunions to every possible Toastmasters club. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to ask Ron Althouse to come up here. He is an area governor. He is a man who visits many clubs. I've run into him on numerous occasions in speaking engagements where he was just happened to be there. This man is a Toastmaster of the first degree. Please, Ron, share with us.
Sure. Gary, thank you very much. Gary used one word earlier when he was wrapping up the formal part of the meeting, and the word was innovation. And I think this particular meeting certainly exemplified innovation. The Tabletopics, which has already been commented upon, was an excellent idea. And as an area governor, one of the things I like to do is take those innovative ideas and spread them amongst my other clubs. It's amazing how many different clubs have different schemes and techniques and abilities to do things. And I hope you and the TV audience experience that by coming to TV Toastmasters, coming to any of the clubs that we have in this area. Please come forward because it is a fun, delightful, and educational experience. Thank you, Gary. Thank you very much.
And lastly, I'm going to call Laura Lee Gayfield up here. She is an officer for CIC Speaks. It's a President's Distinguished Club. This club becomes distinguished, select distinguished, and President's Distinguished quite often before just about any other club in the district. They're that good. They're that disciplined. And I would like to ask Laura Lee to share with us what she thought of this particular meeting based on the fact that she comes from a club that is so distinguished.
Yeah, the club that I am from is distinguished, but there are still a lot of similarities. We are often at the last minute looking for people to fill the roles in the evaluations. At the last minute, bringing in our books to find somebody to fill one of our projects out. So there are a lot of similarities. Our meeting also tries to fit within the 1 hour time frame. We meet more often, so that helps give our members more opportunities to speak with their prepared speeches and also in their table topics and evaluators. So there are several similarities, but also some wonderful differences that make each club a little different. It is nice to visit other clubs and see how they are similar, how they're the same, but there's always a feeling of happiness and confidence and education and support that is in Toastmasters no matter what club you're visiting. Thank you.
Lastly, I'm going to ask a member to come up who did not have a speaking role today. Mr. Mike Schaefer, I know that you served as cameraman today, but I'd like to ask you to come up here and just give us a couple minutes of the opportunity for the audience to see what you actually look like. Hopefully they won't turn off in the middle of this program. But I'd like for you to just share with us your impressions of the meeting and give you an opportunity to speak since you are a member of this club, just most recently.
Thank you, Gary. I just want to say everyone did a great job. I'm proud to be a member of this club, and I enjoy running the cameras and staying in the background. But yeah, I would like to encourage anyone out there that would like to come and be a member of this club or be a guest of this club, that we are located where we'd like someone had said earlier, we actually meet the third Saturday in the morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's at ACTV, which is right behind Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken on Beachmont. It's right down there. You come down here Saturday morning on the third Saturday, and we will be here, and you can come down and be a guest. So I'd like to encourage everyone to do that. Mr. President.
In case you're wondering, Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken will now give him a bucket of chicken for mentioning their name on TV, a free promo spot, and he will eat it. Well, that concludes our meeting for today. This is airing during the January 2007 time period. We hope you're having a great and wondrous new year. Keep those New Year's resolutions, or revolutions as they're called. I encourage you to make your New Year's resolution to come and visit us the third Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning, here at AUC TV. We have something to offer you that will change your life and help you achieve your dreams. With that said, I call this meeting adjourned. TV Toastmasters 9523.